Hi, my name is Crystal Harrison with Harrison Real Estate at Coldwell Banker Premier Realtors based out of Southington, Connecticut. Buying a home can be a really exciting process, but it can also be filled with a little bit of stress and a lot of questions. My goal in the next 4 weeks is to introduce you to 4 contacts you would have during the home buying process and let them explain to you each step of the process along the way and how you would utilize their services. Hopefully, by the end of this 4-week series, you will have your questions answered and referrals to the right contacts you would need during the home buying process. Our goal is that this is helpful, informative, and puts you on the right step to your home buying process. We at Harrison Real Estate aim to be the team you can trust with the service you deserve.
Okay, so the first step in your home buyer process should always be to talk to a lender and find out if you can get pre-approved and what you can get pre-approved for. So I'm happy to bring to you Ed Smith. And Ed, why don't you introduce yourself and your company a little bit?
Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to homeowners. My name is Ed Smith. I'm with Allied Mortgage, and I specialize in first-time home buyers or possibly people moving into their second home or third home or else downsizing. So a lot of different home buyers that we service each and every day.
Okay, great. And when I give someone your card and I tell them, give Ed a call, when they pick up that phone, what is the first thing that you're going to have them do or they can expect from you?
Really that first conversation, and I like it to be a conversation, is about finding out why they're looking to make the purchase, because the better understanding I have of that purchase really makes it a lot more effective as to which of the thousands of programs we're going to put them, give them options to lend from, I guess you could say. So there's so many programs and they change every day that it's really beneficial to find out why they're making that purchase.
Yeah, I always say the same thing. The more I get to learn about a homeowner, the better I get, or a home buyer, the better I get at picking out homes for them. What document should they immediately have ready for you?
When they have that initial conversation with me, I usually direct them to my website, which gives them a secure access to putting some personal information. And so it's basic information like name, address, phone number, social security number, and birth date. But beyond that, maybe their last 2 pay stubs and maybe last 2 bank statements, where they can expect to put their assets and then their pay rate. And then we'll do a credit pull. And at that point, we'll be able to issue that pre-qualification letter.
Okay. And a good question I always get from people is there a difference between the pre-qualification and the pre-approval? Because those are 2 terms thrown around a lot.
And I think it depends on which lender you work with, depends on which term you really get. I've worked a couple different places and those terms are interchangeable. I think you could say our letter actually says pre-qualification, but it works the same way. It's going to be that permission slip or shopping list, you could say, to go look at houses. And then once we get to the home buying process, we change that to the offer.
Okay, great. And how long do these pre-approvals tend to be valid for? What about if you don't find a house before it's not valid, and does it affect your credit to get a new pre-approval?
No, so we do one credit pull, and while that shopping process is happening, now the pre-qualification does say on it it's valid for 30 days, but let's say 36 days into it, you're ready to go look at houses again. That's fine. We'll just update the pre-qualification just to kind of make sure that everything's stayed the same income and asset wise. But beyond that, we'll keep refreshing that document as you're out searching for the home, and then once you find it, then we try to curtail it one more time to make sure that it's accurate and the most up to date, and we'll have it match the purchase price, or the offer price, I should say, so that we have a good shot at winning the house.
Okay, great. And then, long gone are the days where you need that 20% down to purchase a home. So can you talk a little bit about various down payment programs you may have?
So they vary from 0% down to 3% down to 3.5% down. And, and then depending on the housing type, maybe a condo might be 5% down. But a misconstrued notion is actually that you need to put 20% down to avoid PMI. But what I can tell you is if you put 20 or put 19% down, you'll get a better interest rate. So just because you're putting 20% down and not having PMI means that then the price of the loan is going to be a little bit higher. So actually, if you're really trying to get that loan at the lowest cost, actually 19% down will get you there. And then once you pay the 1.5% to get below the 80% mark, then you actually will reduce that PMI, which might be $20 at that point. So it may not be a very big monthly payment, may be more beneficial. So, and today the rates are so good that maybe you take as much money as you can. I mean, is the other thing that we definitely would consider. But
yeah, you could utilize maybe some of those funds to do repairs or things that you wanted instead. So what's beyond down payments, there's also closing costs, and sometimes buyers are surprised by this. Can you talk a little bit about what closing costs are, and is there a general percentage you use to help buyers just kind of plan for this?
I think closing costs are very typically between 3 and 5%. I think that's a good rule of thumb. So if you think that, you'll probably be pretty happy with the answer. There are some fixed costs in there, so it doesn't matter if you're buying a $1 million house or a $200,000 house. You know, there are going to be some fixed costs. Well, one of them is what's called a lender origination fee. That's how I get paid. So, you know, I always put that up front, but that doesn't move. So that's $995. So that's a flat rate. Appraisals are going to be part of that, which you have to pay before closing. So that's the one expense you have before closing, and important to kind of keep in mind. I always tell borrowers that's the one time we'll have our hand out, you know, prior to the closing table, and that's somewhere I would say between $450 and maybe $700, depending on the size, you know, and of the house and some of the things that the appraiser has to do. The rest of the items are really negotiable things in the world on that closing cost sheet. With some exceptions maybe that you can't really control or know ahead of time, which is the taxes you have to pay back to the seller of the property, and maybe anything, you know, oil in the tank, you know, those kind of things, you know, affect those closing cost numbers.
Okay, great. And what is the number one hurdle that could stop someone from getting pre-approved?
Well, I think there's several, so not really just one, but stable income for 2 years, maybe access to those closing cost funds or down payment money, depending on the circumstance. We do have some 0% down programs, but then sometimes there's some caveats to getting the closing costs, you know, and where they come from. But so I like to tell borrowers it's good to have about $5,000, have a stable income for 2 years, and maybe a credit score of around 620. Not to say we can't do something with a 580 credit score, but it just makes the interest rate a little bit higher, and then sometimes some other things will fall apart. So, you know, there are lending is a gray thing. So sometimes, you know, it's a little bit movable. We can do some things, but it also costs more money the more hurdles we come up against, which maybe takes us out of the game on other areas. So, you know, I'd say those are the things that really affect. So sometimes it's not if, it's when, you know, that you can make a home purchase. So sometimes we just have to critique things based on that credit look that first time.
And that $5,000 you talked about, that can always be a gift. So if a parent wants to loan them some money or something like that, that could be something that you guys work out together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we'll need cash reserves. So sometimes that's part of the cash reserves, and we can use a 401k that you never intend to use, which you wouldn't, but we can show that it's as reserve money that you have if the world comes to an end and you need to show 6 months cash reserves. So we have programs like that too. So, you know, gifts and 401ks, they all play a role.
Okay, great. Now, I say briefly, which I know is hard, but can you kind of describe the process from when, you know, I call you and I say, hey, Ed, Joe and Jane secured a contract on a house, here it is. What does that look like on the lending side from the day they secure that contract to closing day?
I feel like it's really a hurry up and wait. So when we have a lot of people behind the scenes maybe doing work in a file, but it's on a stack of files on their desk. So they get in and there's a lot of action at times, and then there's no action for days, and then there's a lot of action again. And so, but what that looks like is basically now we're gathering those documents I spoke of and trying to get the file ready for as little oversight as we can. So we try to, you know, make it, and that's kind of where my job comes in. I'll ask for a series of documents. The faster we get those back, the the quicker we move through the process. And then it'll take there's several people that begin to start doing things. So appraisals are ordered, title work is done with your attorney. And then once the loan gets to the underwriter, what we're looking for is there's on the contract, there's a date called a commitment date, which is the mortgage commitment. And that's where we know we have a loan. Really at that point, we know we're able to move forward when we get to that date. So that's kind of a celebratory date before closing that we all are shooting for, hitting that date. And so the less times that our underwriter has to look at the file, the better chance we are of hitting that date. Right. And they're very good about trying to make sure we hit those dates. So they're working nights and weekends and Sundays to make sure that we hit those dates on time. So there's a lot of, and then there's a question. Maybe we'll see a bank statement. There'll be a deposit that just brings a question and then takes us on a trail. So it's hard to know what those trails will be, but they happen, and then we take care of them as quick as we can, so that we keep everybody focused on the loan itself and don't get them started on another loan because they're waiting for our answer.
Right, and that mortgage commitment date is also important for buyers to know that initial deposit they put down on the house, if for some reason something comes up and that mortgage commitment, that commitment can't be issued, that's one of the caveats in which they can get that deposit back. So if something surprising comes up or the funds they needed are no longer able to be shown and that commitment can't be issued, that is one of the times buyers can get their deposit back.
And we've been known to really help. I mean, we work for our buyers, exclusively. So sometimes a buyer will have something else come up in life and they really wish for us not to hit that commitment date. And so we are able to kind of help them in that regard. Rather than have them withdraw an application, we can find a reason for to not hit that commitment date for them. Yeah,
right. I understand that. Let's say somebody comes to you for whatever reason it may be. Like you said, things come up in life and they say, hey, I don't want to purchase now, but I want to get a house in 6 months, a year, 2 years. What's something they could be doing right now to prepare to be in the best situation possible?
Well, the higher the credit score, the better situated they are. Now, important to know though, the score you see on Credit Karma isn't necessarily the score that we see. So, and how we arrive at our score is very, it's a moving arrow. So I'm not sure really how that is. Even though I've been in the business a long time, it varies from person to person and then rate to rate. It's just very, very kind of unique how that works. But they can work on credit, and job history and down payment money available are all keys. I like to have that conversation ahead of time because the more planning we have, the better situated they will be to actually buy. So, I think buyers could really benefit by having that free consultation 6 months out, because if that time is available, because we can really set the stage for the best deal possible.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Is there anything else that you feel like we've left out of this conversation, or anything you want to touch base on beforehand?
No, I mean, I love to talk to buyers, and I like to tell people that it's free to have a conversation, and so it's really worth planning if there's time to plan.
Yeah, and I always like to refer people like you, Ed, who are local, and I can put a face to the name, and we can run documents over, things like that if we need to, because I think that sometimes so much gets hidden behind a camera that it's nice to have that actual face in person to run to.
It's very nice to not be online, and even though a lot of my work is done online, it's nice to be able to meet borrowers, in person.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we head out, do you want to just give everyone your contact information? So that way, if they want to go ahead and have some of those more deeper conversations with you, they can contact you.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, my name is Ed Smith. My cell phone number, which is my office number, receives texts or calls, but that's 315-542-3563. And my email, which is also very readily available, is esmith@alliedmg.com, and that's ALLIEDMG.com.
Great. And I was going to say, the best thing about working with mortgage brokers is that you guys are available all the time. So I have definitely sent you texts at night, on the weekends, and I am able to reach you, which is great.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. So again, your first step in your home buying process should definitely be to talk to a lender like Ed Smith. Thanks so much, Ed, for taking the time.
Thank you, Crystal.